Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to the Midweek Takeaway. Today we're joined by Mike Ralston, CEO of Blencowe Resources. Welcome back, Mike. How's things?
Thanks, Phil. It's good. We've got a lot of progress going on in a number of different directions, and we're obviously very busy as always.
Sure. I mean, obviously today we saw the announcement that Blencowe relinquished its Akelikongo Nickel Project to focus on the Orom-Cross Graphite Project. Do you want to talk us through the rationale behind this important decision?
Yeah, when we first picked up Aquila Congo in the beginning of this calendar year, it made a lot of sense to us that we were developing another project that was battery metals orientated, being nickel. It was very close to Orom-Cross. And at the end of the day, there was enough synergies for it to make sense for us to do both. But then around about July, we announced to the market the results of our pre-feasibility study for Orom-Cross. And I think that they are truly exceptional. We've got nearly $500 million of NPV, 49% IRR. We make over $1 billion of free cash in just the first 14 years life of mine. And that's going to increase many times more than that once we drill out some more of this project. So there's an incredible project here. And I think we've taken a step back over the last month or two and realized that value within Orom-Cross makes most sense at this stage for us, for our shareholders. And we've got to go about putting all of our efforts and our resources into doing that. So I guess with a little bit of heavy heart in the way that we do believe the nickel has got value. But at this stage for us, it's most important that we focus on the graphite, which has always been our priority project, but the results of the PFS really enforced that for us.
So the scenario that we were looking at was there was going to be a huge, maybe the wrong word, but a large amount of dilution for this nickel project, which in no way, shape or form do we know whether it was going to be as profitable as the graphite project. So it seems, looking at from the outside, it's a very sensible move to not give away all of this stock at this moment in time.
Yeah, Kevin, that's absolutely right. You know, the nickel, whilst it's very attractive, is still an exploration project. And until you've drilled it out and got sufficient tons and grade to make it into a resource and ultimately do a feasibility study and turn it into a commercial project, it's just an exploration project. And at the end of the day, when you're giving away 10, 20, ultimately 30% of the shares in your company, which obviously reflects the value in the graphite as well, it seems very dilutionary and poor commercial sense to be giving that away for the one project on behalf of the other. So, yeah, the timing didn't work for us. Obviously, that's something to do with the share price and dilution as well. But most of all, it's just about realizing that value on the graphite. So, you know, we can spread ourselves thin, both in terms of people, both in terms of money. But at the end of the day, we've got to get that value realized in the graphite. And, you know, once we've gotten further down that pathway, if the nickel project is still alive, if there's still opportunity in what we were looking at before, then we can revisit it. But for now, in the medium term, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I think it's a very wise move. I think what people don't seem to have grasped is this 49% internal rate of return on the PFS. And this is only 2% of the overall size of the project. So we've got a situation here where we've got a market cap of about 5 million or 4 million to 5 million pounds. And we've got a net present value of close to $500 million, with obviously some funding that is required to get us there. But the reality is these numbers just don't add up. They don't make any sense. So what do you plan to do about that? As in, if the market isn't cooperating, what's the next move?
Yeah, just to perhaps take a step sideways on that. I mean, we're not alone in that respect. I've done quite a bit of peer comparison in the graphite space. There are a number of other projects and companies that are particularly down in Tanzania and other parts of Africa, which are in similar types of circumstances where they've completed studies and they've got huge, big NPVs and IRRs and lots of value, but their market caps don't reflect that. So I don't think that we're doing anything particularly bad. At the end of the day, I just think that the overall market has not yet embraced graphite in the way it's embraced the other battery metals such as lithium, cobalt, nickel, etc. So it's something that we've all got the same issue with. My personal belief is that you've got to continue to put more and more value on the project at project level. And sooner or later, the market will pick that up. And how will they pick that up? Well, if you introduce project partner at a project level and that valuation shows a considerably higher valuation than what you've got in the market, then obviously that's one way to very clearly demonstrate that the market's not giving you the correct value. The other way is to obviously continue to just tick boxes, get offtake partners, get funding, and ultimately get into production, because there are actually very, very few new graphite projects going into production. And that's going to start this ball rolling, the one that we've talked about many times before, where we're going to see demand is continuing to rise, and yet supply is standing very still. And ultimately, that's going to be something that brings incredible value to us. So, yeah, we've got to keep doing what we've done before. We've only owned this project for 2.5 years. Most of our peers have held their projects for over 10 years. So we are a few steps behind them in terms of the 8 ball. And reality is that we've just got to keep putting value onto the project, and ultimately that will speak for itself. So that's what we'll do. And hopefully we'll be able to continue to show that in terms of announcements going forward.
So from the point of view of offtakes, are you in discussions with people at the minute in terms of offtakes, and also from the point of view of partners? Obviously, you can't give us any sensitive details, but these things are happening, I presume.
Yeah, we are. We put out technical data sheets to a bunch of different potential end users a little while back. A bunch of them have come back to us and talking to us. We're in communication. In fact, I had one call this evening, and we're just going to continue to talk through that process and ultimately send samples to them. Once they've done their own lab test work, then the next step that they're going to ask us for is bulk samples of in the order of magnitude of tons rather than kgs. And that's where we need our pilot plant up and running. So we need to show that there's offtake interest in order to get the funding that will ultimately build that plant. So the samples that we're sending off to people now will hopefully get that interest and form some sort of expressions of interest that we can then show to the funding parties in order to get them to help us build this plant going forward. And yeah, there's definitely interest. We've got a high quality concentrate, and we've always said that it has low impurities and plenty of other key attributes that make it genuinely different and highly regarded. And we're starting to see that feedback coming from the market.
Good. What can the market expect from you next then, do you think?
Well, it's a process. It doesn't happen that quickly, obviously, because as I said, we've got to engage with them all. Then we've got to send them samples. They will then going to take a period of time to do their own test work on those samples. Once the samples are back from their own testing, if it's a good result, then we can start discussing what they can give us as a tangible in terms of an expression of interest. So this all takes a bit of time. If there is anything that we can announce to the market to show visible evidence of that support and where that's going, we'll obviously put it out there. But make no mistake, that work is underway. And in parallel with that, we're engaging with a number of different key parties and strategic players in terms of finding funding sources to build this plant and to complete the DFS. And the DFS is beginning. I mean, it's already started a month or so ago, but it will carry on right through to the end of next year. And the pilot plant will obviously be a big part of that. But we are continuing to do work there. And then there's a lot of work happening in country that we'll be continuing to put out some announcements on as we hit milestones. We're in the process of applying for an export processing zone license, and that's going to be a key milestone for us if that comes through. So there's lots happening, and it all leads towards the end goal of funding, offtake, production. And if we can bring all those together by the end of next year, we're going to have done something which many of our peers have not done, having owned their projects for 10 years, and that's get into production. And as this market starts to move and shift gears, those graphite parties that are or companies that are in production are going to have a very key role to play going forward, because it's a lot easier to be able to adjust to shifts in demand when you're in production than when you're still out there searching for funding and other means to do that. So our goal is to try and leapfrog many of our peers and get into production early, which is by the end of next year. and thereafter to start ramping up beyond that towards a larger scale production, obviously, as we grow.
I have noticed also that the graphite prices started to escalate a bit as well over the last 2 or 3 months. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, well, it's very interesting. We have a very experienced sales and marketing advisor who's got key graphite pricing information, and that's coming from end users rather than the selling side of the market. And I think it's very important to note that, because from the selling side of the market, you can pretty much say anything because you want to sell it for X, Y, or Z, but actually what buyers are buying it for can be completely different. So that information is up to date as anything. It's obviously coming from literally the end users themselves. And it seems to indicate that the price of the small fines has risen quite considerably over the last quarter. It's difficult to say exactly why. There are definitely some supply chain issues in China, and that's caused some of it for sure. But we are starting to see the prices move. Now, I don't know whether they'll stay higher. They may obviously come back down again. There's that chance. But as it stands today, the prices at that end of the market for those particular products are considerably higher than what we forecast in our 2025 feasibility study. So the impact of that, if we were to rerun our numbers today, would be considerable. That's obviously quite a big impact item for us. And we're just going to keep watching it, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of forecasts that say that the demand for graphite is going to outstrip supply. But when we're starting to see it actually happen in the market and prices starting to rise, then it definitely starts to bring home that this graphite accelerated demand or growth could really happen quite soon. And it's starting to happen in the market.
Yeah. And today, after your announcement, the share price has risen a small amount, which is a good start. Let's hope people start to recognize the value that you innately have here, and we'll hope to speak to you soon in terms of what's going forward.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I think at the end of the day, as you pointed out right at the beginning of this chat, is 5 million market cap of nearly 500 million NPV is ridiculous. But it's up to us to keep ticking boxes and delivering these key milestones so that we can take away the risk factors and bring it home to the market that this is real. And obviously, it's something that they can look at as an investment going forward. So our job is to just keep doing what we're doing and keep putting new announcements and new information into the market as we go.
Good. Mike Ralston, CEO of Blencowe Resources, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, gents.
Thanks, Mike.
This podcast was brought to you by Roast PR Limited. If you would like to appear on a future episode of The Sunday Roast, please email admin@thesundayroast.net.